Welcome everybody to Humnaity Show with Sue Walker. Bienvenue tout le monde à l'émission Humnaity avec Sue Walker. Sue Walker has been introduced in the previous show and she has such a wonderful bio. I will let her introduce her at this moment. Sue Walker, dans la première émission, elle avait un bio qui était tellement énorme et je vais lui laisser s'introduire présentement. Sue Walker, bienvenue. Sue Walker, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Well, hello from New Mexico. I'm Sue Walker, and I live in a suburb of the Albuquerque, New Mexico area, 10 miles east of a mountain called the Sandia Mountain. And I am by day a professional clairvoyant and medical intuitive. And that's been my career for 25 plus years now. But I also have another job, and this one I took on voluntarily. And what I do, quite honestly, is translate for a group of extraterrestrials that operate out of a facility beneath the Sandia Mountain. This group of extraterrestrials is called the Pontee. There are approximately 200-ish of them working beneath the Sandia Mountain currently in various capacities. And they contacted my spouse and I in 2013 and began a dialogue with us quite unexpectedly. Since then, the Pontee have been sharing information about themselves, not only with us, but in 2015, as incredulous as it sounds, they requested a Twitter account. When we opened up the Twitter account for the Pontee, they shared information about themselves and about their people for about a year before they assigned us a telepathy teacher and dictated a telepathy course because they are a telepathic nation. And the course is a free online course that is now translated into at least 13 major Earth languages. And you can download it for free in French from officialfirstcontact.com. We are also the authors of a book called Inviting ET, and I believe Francois has a copy there beside him.
Yes, definitely.
Inviting ET is what they have instructed us to relay as to how to invite the Pontee to come visit you, whether it's you by yourself in your home, or whether or not you'd like to hold a CE5 or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind event with others. This is a manual that walks you through all of the various things that can happen and all of the things that you need to consider. Our most recent publication, believe it or not, is a children's coloring book. And it's the Official First Contact Coloring Book of the Pontee. And the Pontee are delighted that this publication has been put out, and it's based on the illustrations and the portraits that I've done of them at their request. But the coloring book addresses the under age 10 demographic, 10 years old, and introduces them to the concept that Earth's official first contact is coming up and that they don't need to be afraid of the Pontee. And in fact, the Pontee and I are working on developing a second coloring book, now starting the introduction of other star nations, so that by the time official first contact comes around in 2021, fall of 2021, that's when they said that the star nations are planning it, that we will know more information about the nations that will be attending, because it won't just be with the Pontee. So that's a little bit about me. Does that make sense? And would you like to translate that and ask any questions?
Yes. I was going to ask you before, well, after this translation, I would ask if you can actually bring the attention to the people that there's the party come from the Zeta Reticuli star system, and to many decades of our understanding, there seems to be two groups: the benevolent ones and the malevolent ones. We'd be able to address that to clarify this misunderstanding regarding this, because there's a lot of confusion
All right.
on this
So what the Ponti have told us is that there are at least 5 major subcategories of folks with the Zeta Reticuli type body type: large head, dark eyes, nictitating lenses, slender limbs, petite short, and 3 or 4 fingers depending on the nation. Not all of those nations come specifically only from the Zeta Reticuli system, but the area of the galaxy around Zeta Reticuli seems to have a cluster of them. Not all of the nations are known to us yet by name. We know of the name of the Ponti, but the Ponti have indicated to us that there are races, star nations in this galaxy who are not benevolent, who are not as mature or advanced as a culture. They have also indicated to us that there is at least one star nation who uses their technology to essentially combine plant matter and animal matter, if I can use that loose terminology, to artificially grow beings that look as if they are zetas, and then download those quickly grown beings with a programming that is artificial. So you're talking about created beings grown in a laboratory, never raised by parents, never taught the right and wrong, but instead programmed like you would program an android. Okay. Those created beings that look like they have the large head and the dark eyes, that are programmed, the Ponti consider extremely alien. They don't recognize them as a sentient nation unto themselves. Yet Earth humans, because they think that all the Zeta body types are the same nation, because they all, at least to the untrained eye, look alike, they find that Earth humans lump the Zeta Reticuli area nations that are benevolent and have had Earth's best interest in mind and Earth humans' best interest in mind, and have been attempting to help for centuries, if not millennia. They're frustrated that the PR or the public relations have gone out lumping all of the Zeta looking folks together, and now they have to re-educate the Earth human population because Hollywood and some other people who describe their interactions with the Zetas assume that there's one nation and that they're all alike, and that's not quite true. So do we know that the Ponti have told us that if you find an Earth human problem, whether it's greed or hatred or wrong-minded action here on Earth, can you find it out in this galaxy? Oh, yes, you can. Not all star nations are positive and white light and benevolent. there's just as much of a spectrum out there as there is right here amongst people. What they do tell us is if you encounter one negative individual from a star nation, do not please judge that entire nation by the actions of one individual. You wouldn't want us to have that happen to us if the roles were reversed.
Thank you for the understanding. It seems to also, if you can clarify also the abductions we had many decades ago by some of these anti-reticulans that maybe not represent the benevolent ones. Can you clarify that, or can Ponte clarify that as to what was their basic motivation behind these abductions here?
I can. There are a number of things that the Ponte and other star nations study about us. One of them is our genetics. One of them is our development and learning curve. One of them is our individuals' talents. One of the things that they study are our health issues. When the Ponte come visit and they pick us up, one of the first things that they will do is a wellness check. They want to make sure that you're not carrying pathogens that are going to spread to other contactees or them. And so will they and can they, do they frequently do a medical examination just to make sure you're okay, or whether or not they need to put you into a what they call their dip tank, which is a nutrient solution that takes care of surface pathogens and absorbs through the skin. They frequently do that. But what we were finding is a lot of people who have had interaction with the Ponte take actions that I think personally are not frightening and paint them as frightening. Okay, let me give you a for instance. If I wake up and there's a Ponte standing next to my bed, the average Earth human who has never seen one before would go through the ceiling. They would become extremely frightened. Okay, even if the Ponte did nothing but stand there, they would consider it threatening. And when I go back and ask them later, why did you feel threatened? They eventually come round to the fact that they were startled, did not expect a strange person in their home, did not expect to wake up to someone. But when I press them and say, did they do anything, say anything, indicate anything threatening to you in any way, shape, or form? The answer is no. So we ask our contactees and our experiencers who invite the Ponte to keep their discernment intact, always, but to observe the nonverbal actions of the people that they have invited to come visit them, and use that as more of a gauge to judge whether or not fear is truly warranted. Now, that said, if you wake up and there's somebody standing next to your bed and they feel extremely evil to you, we're going to say trust that and do whatever you can to get away to deal with the situation and trust those instincts. But we also want to let people know that observing the body language of any visitor to Earth, whether you see them up close or from afar, and observing their actions will tell you far more than if you did not do it. And so, for the most part, when we talk to people about what are you considering a negative action, and we tell them about the wellness checks and being tossed into the dip tank if they think that we're going to make them or somebody else sick. While that can be a new, unique, startling, and weird experience, I don't know if fear is maybe exactly the response that they're expecting from it. The Ponti do everything they can to not create fear. Whenever they come to visit anyone that's Earth human, they have to follow their own mission protocols. And their own mission protocols are in order: cause no fear, do no harm, leave no trace. That's what they instruct their visiting teams. And so the Ponti actually bend over backwards to try everything they can think of, including screen memories, so that their subjects won't panic, won't have that fear factor. If they didn't care, they wouldn't bother. And so we know that because they care, they try very hard to not make you afraid.
Well, that's important for that information. Thank you. So, because other researchers, I'm not going to name names here, but they would say that the negative alien agenda or the intruder races are here, which actually most of the researchers, most of the people in this community understand that, but most of humanity does not understand that. And some researchers would say that they use the art of persuasion to actually, to a government agency and to other gifted individuals to actually do things that would benefit them. So the parties seem to be encouraging humanity in the other direction. And
Yes.
can you share us some understanding that can bring the evidence to humanity that these Telepathically actually are of service to humanity and creation to their acts and to their actions?
Well, all right. What we can do is point to all of the things that they have explained to the public on Twitter about all these various subjects regarding themselves, their culture, other star nations, and the teachings that they have provided. If they were a negative extraterrestrial race, I doubt that they would be telling you to keep your skepticism and discernment intact. If they were a negative race, I doubt you would see them talking about the all, the creator, the soup, unconditional love. If they were a negative race, they wouldn't be warning us about the climate changes that are coming and telling us that it's time to work together to get prepared, because there's no going back. We've crossed the apex and we're on the downhill slide, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. When I look at the actions of the Ponti with other people that they have visited around the world, everywhere from Dover, England, to France, to Australia, to Canada, to here in the United States, and the conversations that the Ponti have had with people other than Otter and I, my spouse and I, those other Earth human contactees are also witness to a caring people that are attempting very much to not only learn our culture, but introduce our people to their culture. If they didn't care, again, they wouldn't bother. So their actions are bearing out across the planet with the experiencers and contactees who have invited them, received enough repeat visits that they've had dialogues, plural, that they can put together, have all concurred that of all the ET races that visit this planet, the Ponti are probably one of the kindest, one of the nicest, one of the easiest for us to understand socially, one of the funniest, and a nation that has been extremely helpful in saying, guys, your world has a problem, and we've come here to let you know and to help. And we're not the only ones who are coming to help. So again, if this was a negative race, if they were only here to take our resources, they have the technology and the personnel and the ships to take whatever they want right now. They're not. They're not. And they haven't been. There is no record that we can point to anywhere on the planet of the Ponti coming and stealing resources from any culture I'm aware of. Are you aware of any?
So basically, the Ponti are trying to empower humanity to grow up spiritually and to create their own rules of engagement with other ET races. So basically,
Sure.
humanity, it becomes a responsible planetary race.
Mm-hmm.
Actually will be part of the greater community, but actually will create its own rules of engagement. So in order to create its own rules of engagement, it used to be unity on this planet. So that means that humanity will have to go a lot of different changes inwardly and outwardly. And I think the Ponti are encouraging that. Can you share some examples how the Ponti encourage humanity to reach that state of understanding about themselves?
Well, all right. The Ponti are trying to, one, let Earth humans know that there's a scale out there of sentient nations living on planets who are on the verge of or have gone past the ability to leave their own atmosphere, explore their own solar systems, or leave their own solar systems. They tell us that there is an advanced civilization level scale, and that once a nation reaches advanced civilization level 0, Dr. Stephen Greer uses advanced civilization level 1, but the concept is the same. Once they reach a beginning stage, then they are considered hopefully a viable enough race that they can be taught and instructed with the history and the backstory of the various star nations in our galaxy that are influencing first this arm of the galaxy, much less the whole rest of the galaxy. And please understand, you're talking about billions of stars, planets, and millions of various kinds of peoples, good, bad, and in between. We have a lot of history that we don't know. And they are willing to begin the process of starting to introduce us to that history, and then allow those particular star nations to pick up and describe their own history themselves, because that is their right and their honor to do so. So they won't completely describe the entire history of a whole other star nation, and instead they will allow that star nation to describe their own history themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So it seems that, if I understand correctly, the Ponti seem to be like almost like, I would say type of coaches or mentors to encourage humanity to go within oneself and get in touch with their higher selves or with creation, and start to really get the true knowledge, which is from creation, and not necessarily get the knowledge from the intellect, but get the true knowledge from one's inner heart via the cosmic.
That's why Tini dictated the Telepathy 101 primer and began to encourage people to practice for 30 minutes a day. The goal was not only to help people improve their telepathic rapport and confidence in sending and receiving telepathically, but it also was designed to get them to connect with the all, with the collective consciousness, to understand the concept of what they call right-mindedness, which is another way of saying thoughtful action that they've thought at least 7 generations into the future for the repercussions of whatever those actions are and how it affects others physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that consideration of not only the future and the emotions and all of the factors is what they call right-minded action. The Ponti, as a telepathic nation, are an extremely emotionally honest nation. Otter and I, as telepathic translators, see a side of the Ponti that the public doesn't always see. They can snip at people. They can be impatient. They can get frustrated. They can be sad or mad. But they're very careful about expressing that emotion right-mindedly with right-minded action.
And so basically, they also encourage the understanding of the importance of the heart for during the telepathic communication. Can you elaborate on that? The importance
You
of the heart.
can. One of the first things that they taught us is most people who think about psychic skill or psychic receptivity in us think about the third eye, think about the pineal gland. The Ponti very quickly taught us that it is not the only brain structure involved in telepathy that is very important. They also cite that a part of the hippocampus called the amygdala is critical in understanding telepathy. And they go on to say it's critical in understanding the emotional carrier wave, so to speak, that telepathy rides on. You cannot understand a telepathic message if you don't understand the emotional intent behind it, because telepathy isn't just like hearing words in your head. It's not like listening to a radio. Telepathy involves them sending images and words and phrases and emotion and history and connections with other people and maps and calendars and all kinds of information overlapping in layers, all in one big chunk that then just kind of goes plop right into your brain. And suddenly you have to decipher emotions and images and sounds and other people and history that a moment before you had no knowledge of. And so at first it can be kind of overwhelming just because it's a lot. It's a lot. It's like some mornings I wake up and it feels like somebody's taught me an entirely new language in the last 2 hours. And my brain is tired just because it's trying to create all these new neural pathways to process this information. And whenever you're learning something new very intensely, it can be physically tiring on the brain and the body. And so that's part of what we go through. But the emotional intent behind a telepathic message frequently is the very first part of the message that you receive. Kind of like if you're not feeling good and I walk into the room and just look at you and you don't say a thing, sometimes the first blurt out of my mouth is, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong?" Because you perceive something different than anything that was said. Yet your perceptions are accurate anyway. So you have to understand the entire message, not just part of it. And that involves using the amygdala and perceiving and being able to interpret the emotional part. Likewise, when you communicate with the Ponti, they expect you to be emotionally honest. And I tell you what, when you're dealing with a telepathic nation, it's really hard to lie. It's really hard to lie and get away with it because they know your intent gives you away. And so we have had to learn complete and utter emotional honesty at our household. And that takes a little practice sometimes, because we were brought up in a culture where little white lies were normal, right? How are you? Oh, I'm fine, even when you're not. Okay. So we've learned a great deal about the Ponte just by their emotional honesty and their reactions to things. And that part has been unusual, delightful, strange, poignant, funny, and you never know what they're going to say next. We're learning every day.
And when you say that's the reason why modern humanity will have a little bit of challenge to actually get back to their hearts, because most of humanity, modern humanity, are traumatized in one way or the other. So there's a lot of inner work to be done, and
There is a lot, yes.
and the Ponte actually alerted that ways to get to that point where in the PDF that you just mentioned, they elaborate on that regarding the
They
heart.
do, and when Otter teaches as a man, he just really hammers home to the gentlemen that are trying to learn how important it is to be in touch with their emotions and their feminine side, to be a balanced person that way. In our culture, many men are taught from childhood to shut down their emotions, to not display their emotions, to not cry, to not show sadness or out of control behavior, or what they would consider out of control behavior like that. The Ponte encourage the expression of emotion right-mindedly. And Otter, when he teaches our Telepathy 101 course, sits the guys down and says, listen, guys, you have to get comfortable with your emotions. If you're not comfortable with your emotions, how are you going to answer to them? And he has a good point.
And Sue, when you talk about the this method that the Ponte teach for Telepathy 101 primer, when you mentioned about the amygdala, are there like satellite dish where actually they receive the emotional carrier wave when it's being transmitted by the other race? Or is the pineal gland the transmitter and the amygdala?
I'm not sure that you can say that one is a transmitter and the other is a receiver.
Mhm.
I know that in order for us to receive, understand, and express emotions, we have to have amygdala. They are the emotional center of our brain. And if those are not functioning, or if they've been damaged through injury or accident, then emotional understanding goes out the window. The pineal gland, they have not specifically said is a sender or receiver, but they do indicate that the whole human body sends and receives information and reacts. And so they have talked about everything from our hair being an extension of our receiving, almost like antenna. They have talked about the amygdala emotional reception. They've talked about our skin response, as in, the hairs on the back of your arm or the back of your neck stand up. And so I guess I would have to say, I don't think that telepathic reception is only limited to one or two structures in our physical bodies. I think it's our whole being.
So the importance of paying attention to our bodily sensations and feelings, and so it's very.
I mentioned all of that in the primer, and Teeny was very, very specific about not only her wording, but the images that she chose for that area of the primer, so that people would remember, listen, it's not just your heart, it's not just here, it's all of it.
It's funny because also the Sasquatch people actually alerted to that also, the importance of the heart. And
Yes.
so we have other beings now actually encouraging humanity to cultivate the heart once again, or to remember that connection once again.
When we first encountered Sunbow's book, The Sasquatch Message for Humanity. We had been talking to the Ponte for more than a year at that point in time when we were first introduced to that book. And I read a whole 2 pages and realized immediately that the Sasquatch and the Ponte had almost identical cultural philosophies. Their concern for the planet, the right-minded action, the honesty, the consideration of others, all of that caring that the Sasquatch have, and wrote about in that book, the Ponte had talked to us about specifically, almost using the same words that the Sasquatch did. And so those 2 cultures, by the way, those 2 star nations, the Ponte and the Sasquatch, are quite good friends. It is not unusual for Sasquatch researchers to see UFOs when they're out squatching, to witness others, meaning star nation beings or multi-dimensional beings other than Sasquatch. Okay, we can't say that they are all from somewhere out there if in fact their living niche is another dimension that's not ours. So but the others, the description of them, the sightings of them, the perceptions of them by Sasquatch researchers, we hear that more than you know. It is the Sasquatch researchers and the Sasquatch community is still divided. We've got a part of the Sasquatch community who still thinks that the Sasquatch are big, dumb, hairy, 8-foot-tall monkeys that have no intelligence. And now we have the other camp who is now getting together and comparing notes that have experienced much more when they take the time to dialogue and learn from the Sasquatch and don't assume that they know nothing. And in fact, the Sasquatch are an extremely intelligent race that's been around on this planet since the Neogene period, millions of years ago after the age of the dinosaurs. Okay, they've been here longer than we have. And they've figured out how to survive through all the various climate changes that have happened since the dinosaurs died out. They've been through the ice ages and come out the other side of them multiple times. We're about ready to head into another one, I think. We better talk to them, don't you?
Yeah, it's interesting that the Sasquatch and Ponte actually have this same understanding about being part of the greater community and what it is to be of service, what it is to be, understanding the connection to the multiverse, And you mentioned about earth changes. That's very interesting. Also about food security and coming together as a planetary race for the upcoming organic earth changes. Can you share with us what the Ponte have to say about that? And
yeah, they're
perhaps
very concerned. They're very concerned. The Sandia Mountain Information Station has more than just information specialists and people who come visit us. They have geologists, they have meteorologists, they have entomologists. They have been studying and observing everything from the temperature of the ocean floors around the planet and the movement of the currents and the population decline or explosion, depending on the population and what it is where. But they're keeping their finger on the pulse of that, of our plate tectonics and our geology, of the intensifying storm systems and the changes meteorologically. They're very concerned about the fact that Earth humans seem to be ignoring the fact that our earth changes are speeding up and we're not doing anything to prepare. Even though we might see the flooding, when I told them that in the state of Florida, here in the United States, there are some communities that are at sea level. Well, now those communities are having flooding issues because of the rise in the ocean. And to soften it, they're calling it sunny day flooding. Sunny day flooding is nothing more than earth-ocean rise that's not going to reverse. We're seeing now the very beginnings of Venice, Italy, going underwater permanently. It's not going to reverse. We are seeing the ice shelves in Antarctica melting and diluting our oceans, and we're seeing the North Pole cap changing. And we're watching and showing pictures on Twitter and Instagram of glaciers that 10 years ago were huge, and they're gone or they're dramatically receded. And we go, isn't that nice? And we don't extrapolate into the future and go, uh-oh, we have a huge problem. They are absolutely aghast. Their entomologists, their insect experts are telling us that we have already lost more than 40% of the species of insects here on this planet in the last decade, 10 years, and we've lost 40%. What are we doing? How are we going to eat if the pollination of those plants can't happen? We can't get those insects back, guys. And there's slight murmurings of people who are planting flowers and maybe thinking about having a beehive, but they're so lackadaisical or half-hearted, or they're all talk and no action, that the Ponti, if they had hair, would tear it out. They don't understand what we're waiting for. Why aren't we moving our people inland to higher ground? Why aren't we all getting together as communities and planting trees and helping the insect population that pollinates our food sources? Why aren't we getting ready for the climate change? Why aren't we educating our own people about the things that we have observed? Why are we keeping it hidden? They don't understand. And to be honest, I agree with them. I don't understand either.
Would you say, Sue, that part of the problem is that humanity is deeply traumatized of all these decades, centuries, and we are beginning to understand that yes, we are traumatized. It's generational trauma, and that but that modern humans are not necessarily apt at working on themselves, and or they're just struggling to pay the mortgage, just struggling to make a living, and whatever energy they have left is just to rest and do their errands. So I think it's a very complicated scenario at this moment, that the governments and the people have to come together as one, and they have to start to co-creating solutions so everyone can benefit from that. But other researchers are pointing out that we have intruders here that are influencing our government agencies that make it so that they're not proactive in situations like that. So it's a very complex.
I'd like to see the actual proof of that. I hear that talk.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it repeated.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it recopied and reshared on the internet amongst conspiracy folks.
Mm-hmm.
Show me any proof, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you have it, send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody I ask of that, where is your evidence? Can you prove what you're saying? What is your source? And I have yet, in asking hundreds of people that question, to find anybody who can prove what they say instead of just repeating what they've heard.
So what would be the underlying cause for humanity's deep coma and not being responsive to what's going around them?
Self-centeredness.
Mm. But this...
We're closed up in our own little houses.
Mm.
We're living in little cracker boxes. We're not doing things with our neighbors. And to be honest, the generation of people born after the advent of cell phones are struggling to even know how to communicate with each other eye to eye. If I go to a restaurant, I watch whole groups of tables of family members and people, everybody sitting around looking at their phones, no one talking to each other. We have lost communication and sharing difficulties and helping each other get through hard times. And so we become isolated and Hollywoodized.
So it's basically of our own doing, basically, that humanity
Yeah.
has led themselves astray from their community-based, tribal, that we used to have many, many, many thousands of years. That little tribal, that little, elders of like Native Americans would have, a little village. I think we go on the village and we call a big circle to see what's going on immediately. So in order to resolve the emotional, issues they had in the villages. Now, if you don't have money, you cannot go and see help because to have help you have money. So there's many things coming at us at this moment: environmental changes, economic challenges, inner work, and this is why I think the Ponte came online to see this as an opportunity to be some type of coaches or mentors to assist humanity to understanding that there's many things coming at us.
They're trying to get people to help each other, teach each other, talk to each other, interact, share, meet, compare notes, and grow together instead of as isolated individuals. Yes.
And the importance of actually food security should be number one on this planet, not military arsenal, but food security.
Yes. At water security first, food security second, food, clothing, shelter. Or what I was taught is that any individual can go into crisis personally if their food, clothing, or shelter become unsecure. All right, I would include food, clothing, shelter, water, and medicine. Those are the big ones. Anytime any of those big five suddenly get yanked away from you for whatever reason, everything growth-wise in your personal life has to stop until that balance can be reestablished. Okay, so if you see a person or a culture in crisis without the balance of food, clothing, shelter, water, medicine, then until you fix those issues, the rest of the growth will have to wait.
So it's very crucial for humanity to understand that very clearly. And it's funny because can I share with the audience right now, because on one of your YouTube presentations you talked about the levels of 0, 1, level 2, level 3, and this is one of your presentation that I just did a screenshot and I'll share. So maybe bring that understanding visually. Maybe it's sometimes it brings it home when you see the visual.
Advanced civilization levels, right?
And you can elaborate with us. So I'm just going to share the screen here. Right here. So this is what we're seeing right now. Can you share with the screen with us, Sue?
What's advanced civilization level 0? Well, we're not there yet, guys. We're not up to 0. When we Earth humans provide food, water, clothing, shelter, and medicine for 100% of our population, when we care about our own people across this planet enough to make sure that everybody is taken care of, then we will finally come up to advanced civilization level 0, and many star nations wait until the planetary culture reaches 0 before they even ever show up.
And Sue, you can, all those, we haven't secured not even one of them.
No, we have none of these secure. We are sitting and have been sitting at a below 0 for quite a while now. And the Ponti and other star nations are hopeful that in teaching about this idea, that it will encourage people to think about it more and pursue it more, and eventually, hopefully, make it happen.
So it's very important that humanity comes to the understanding that we are in right now in a transition of growing pains and to become a global planetary race.
Yes.
And not necessarily.
We need to come together as one, and they know and have talked to us extensively. They have a galaxy historian whose expertise area is planetary official first contacts throughout history in this galaxy. That would be Sarah, who was taught that and learned that in her studies before coming to Earth. And she's let us know that a lot of star nations will look at us as we are now below ACL 0 and consider us not yet worthy of their attention or trade or interaction, that we are still displaying violent, immature behavior that's not right-minded, and have not gotten to the point where we care enough about our fellow human being to go help them. They understand, and Sarah has informed us, that sometimes when a planet encounters other star nations for the first time ever, and that information is spread across the world, that bit all by itself, other star nations out there exist other than just us. We're not the only ones in this galaxy. That piece of information alone can unite or begin the process of uniting the local population who are separated and scattered into emotionally or intentionally becoming more right-minded toward each other. In other words, they see that they have more in common with each other than they do with the star nation that has come to visit them. And that's why it unites. They're hoping very much that the rumors about a false flag operation that they observe in at least the militaries around the world is not going to come to pass. That would not be wise. Other star nations would consider a false flag operation as a lie and would cease contact with the individuals who perpetrate the lie. Some nations that visit our world are not all that much more advanced than we are, and they don't have the technology to defend themselves against things as much as some of the more advanced nations. And if we start out our interactions with star nations from other parts of the galaxy by stating a lie that a star nation has come to Earth and attacked and wreaked havoc and destroyed people and hurt or murdered people, if we do that kind of a false flag operation and blame ET, then you can kind of kiss Earth's official first contact goodbye, because the majority of the nations, not all of them, but the majority of the nations would consider it so immature, so abhorrent, so awful, that so wrong-minded, that they would go, nope, they're not ready for their official first contact in any way, shape, or form. Not if they're doing that kind of behavior. And so they have put out multiple tweets, multiple messages saying, do not start your first Star Nation interactions with a lie. Do not start your first Star Nations interactions with a false flag operation that blames an extraterrestrial nation for death and destruction when it's not so. Don't go there.
So basically, it's encouraging government agencies not to be fearful of these benevolent ETs and to actually open their hearts and minds.
They're trying to tell people that the best thing that you can possibly do is keep your skepticism and discernment intact, but to get to know other people, no matter where they're from, on an individual by individual basis. Trust is earned. Trust is earned. And they're willing to trust us as long as we don't start our interactions with them with a lie.
And talking about these first interactions, official first contact we'll be having with them, it's important to bring us to that understanding that it's not about technology.
No.
Can you elaborate that? Because it seems to me a lot of people say, oh my God, this is great. We'll have all this fancy technology. We'll be saved by this and that. Can you elaborate on the misunderstanding about what most people consider a planet that...
Official first contact is not about tech. They're very clear on that point. It's not like we're going to have official first contact and the next day they're going to hand us their weapons, their medical technology, their ships. Are you kidding? Oh no. The first thing we have to do is get beyond the fear and gain understanding. So if you're talking about fears and emotional understanding, then essentially official first contact is about addressing emotions, not tech. You have to earn trust and display the right-minded behavior to earn their trust first before any other information can get shared. They are not just going to blindly hand a weapon to a kindergartner. They're not going to do it. OFC is not about tech. That may come. But the very first thing we have to do is get to know each other as people. And we've got a lot of history to learn first before we can decide the best way to proceed from here. And whether or not we're going to ask some of those star nations for help and how that's going to happen. And whether or not there's any star nations that have helped us in the past and who they are and what they did. Like I said, we have a lot of history to learn about who's been kind, who's had right-minded actions on our planet, who's had wrong-minded actions on our planet, who has not behaved well, who has stolen resources in the far past. We need to learn a lot of things. And so official first contact is about that first introductory meeting of, I'm getting over my fear to come meet these other strange looking people who aren't from here. They're getting over their fear of interacting with me because I'm different to them also. And we're still considered an unpredictable and violent species. So we've got a lot of work to do on both sides to begin to understand each other as cultures. Now multiply that by 30 plus other star nations, more than just the Ponte.
So we said these 30 other star nations, they actually are benevolent star nations. They're not what we consider intruders or negative alien agendas.
Well, all right. So the nations who have requested to participate in our official first contact, if they were negative, I don't think that the group that keeps our planet protected, because we are currently considered in protected planet status. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's very important too. Can you elaborate on that? Why
Yes.
we are protective?
What they have told us is more than 5,000 years ago, there was a star nation who came to this planet and essentially broke their rules in engaging in a upcoming sentient nation, us, indigenous to a world, and there was a star nation that began to take advantage of us as a people and of Earth's resources, and they were not behaving right-mindedly according to the other star nations. There was a conflict, and the conflict wasn't Earth human to star nation. The conflict was from one sect of this star nation to another group of this same star nation, and they weren't getting along. It would be like if two different nations went to the moon, ran into each other, and started a fight. Okay? It was a conflict between two individuals, or two groups that were opposing, but of the same star nation, not from here, that decided that they would take it out on each other and each other's facilities on Earth by having a bit of a battle. And there was some destruction and loss of life, and help had to be called in to essentially extricate and ban the star nation that started the problem in the first place. Okay, so the story that came to us from the Ponti is you will find locations in various places around the world where you see evidence of what looks like destruction from above, evidence of former extreme heat weapons, whether they were nuclear or other, I can't tell you. Evidence of tops of mountains being taken off. Evidence of strafing and destruction on the ground. And stories about battles that were witnessed in the sky. Okay, all of those things exist. The nation that was involved was banned from this world, and in fact, when they came back into this solar system in June of 2017, we were informed immediately that they had entered the system at all. So the other star nations are kind of keeping a wary eye on this nation that used to be here in a much stronger fashion and build quite megalithic structures here. And they got kicked off our planet. And they're asking now to come back and trying to tell us that they're going to be nice this time. Okay. If the other star nations and the Ponti trust them, I would be inclined to trust them. As a telepathic nation, I think they could tell if they were wrong-minded or if their intent was not good. So I'm letting our Ponti friends call the shots on that one, because I don't know much more than what they've told us.
It's funny you mentioned about what happened on Earth. Would that be part of the Hindu textbook called the Mahabharata that mentioned about the Vaminas and these exchange between different races? And some parts of India, some of the rock is actually glazed, or what type of weapons they use, as you just described.
Right.
So,
You can examine the sand And when they say the sand turns into a sea of glass, you know something very, very, very hot has caused that to happen. And so you can examine sands around the world for evidence of being affected this way. And we're talking about huge areas, not a small spot that's been hit by lightning. Okay.
And it
We're
seems to
talking
me
about whole strafe areas.
the Pati are very careful. They don't actually name names like we're so accustomed to Earth. Oh, it's the Anunnaki, or it's the Draconian, or it's the reptilians. Or we tend to be really engaged here on Earth to have who's who, who's who, but the Pati don't seem to be telling names that much, right?
Well, all right. So what their policy with us has always been to be very careful in their word choice of other nations, because they realize that one wrong word from them can prejudice Earth humans against a nation unnecessarily. All right. And so we hear people talking in prejudicial generalities. Let me give you, for instance, the Ponti called the folks that worked in both South America and Egypt with the elongated skulls. They're both considered Iya. Iya is essentially elongated skull person. There are a number of worlds that Iya now come from. They've been exploring this galaxy for a long time. There are many subcultures, not all of them bad, but because they were involved with this situation millennia ago and banned and escorted off planet, they think all the Iya are bad. Well, no, that's not true. The Iya that helped in Central and South America were not liars, cheaters, thieves, okay? They were educators, teachers, architects, builders, doctors. They taught agriculture and medicine and astronomy to those populations, and attempted to do so in a very right-minded way. So to lump any culture together as they're all good or they're all bad draconians. Well, have you met one? What makes them bad? What made that one bad? What's the actual history that you know? What's your source? Or are you simply repeating what you've heard somebody else make up? And you know how the game of telephone works. The story changes, telling after telling after telling. Well, we try and get the story straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, the Ponte's mouth. But we're trying very hard because we see them try very hard to not speak in a manner that casts shadows onto others for no good reason.
So it's basically saying the past is the past. Now we can hear, we can learn from our lessons. So different star nations can learn from their own lessons of the past. And things can change even for those nations that create those wars. So it's the perpetual forgiveness as angelic human beings that.
Well, and the other thing is which sect, which group specifically started the brouhaha in the first place? Which person did? Why did they? What was the real story? What happened that somebody was mad enough to attack somebody else? And what happened that they weren't allowed back here for more than 5,000 years? We've got more information we need.
Yeah, and they actually, like you mentioned, will they be elaborate a little bit more about the history with you as the months?
They are slowly, yes. And in fact, as I draw the various star nations, and to date, I think we have 8 different nations that we've been working on, drawing and illustrating that either we personally have met, Otter and I, through the Ponte, or that other Ponte contactees have met and can describe it to me, and I can draw it like a forensic sketch artist. So we are coming up with the details about those other star nations that have been helping our planet and are asking to participate in Earth's official first contact. We're asking for the name of the individual that we speak with, what they call their people, what they call their world, or where home is, where that is, and a little bit about their historic interaction with Earth. That's the minimum that we're trying to gather about each of these nations that is expressing an interest in official first contact. And the Ponte are asking those nations if it would be permitted to share that information before the fall of 2021 so that Earth humans get used to at least the appearance of some of these other star nations. And a little bit about, oh, well, that's a so-and-so from here. This guy's name is this, and they've been on Earth doing this kind of research since whenever. We're trying to gather the specifics.
And can the EA be part of one of those star nations, the EA that you just mentioned a few minutes ago?
I do not know what the status officially is of the EA participating in official first contact. I can tell you that at least one of the sects of the EA that are focused on spirituality and would be considered some of their holy people have approached us. And I have drawn at least one gal and one guy that are from that elongated skull nation. I don't think that Commander Teal'c nor the Ponte would have let them come to be drawn or introduce them to us if they didn't pass the Ponte's test of right-mindedness. So do I think that there may be some EA participating in Earth's official first contact? Yeah, only because they came to us for a sketch. That was our only clue. We do not have an official word. I will stress that. The list of who's going to be participating will fluctuate until December of 2020. They have until the beginning of that year to say yes or no.
And will you have the opportunity to share with us the drawings, some of the drawings that you do?
I can. In fact, I brought some out here with me if you would like to see some.
And just before that, Sue, I'd like to bring this, if you can clarify for us also, a lot of the people have this fear about this anti-reticulate, well, let's just say the Ponte having this big black eyes. Can you share with us, what is it that, to clarify once and for all? And I actually have a picture that I took that you actually draw. And once you finish explaining, I'll show the picture. So please clarify this misunderstanding or this fear based about the big black eyes.
We asked about that too. So Pontel's world has a different spectrum sun than our world does. And their spherical part of their eyes, their eyeball, is about twice as large as ours on average. The colored part of their eye, the iris, again, is about twice as large as ours. But the Ponte's advantage is that they have a second eyelid. They have the same kind of eyelid that frogs and some bird species have here and some reptilian species have here. They have a dark nictitating membrane that can cover the sensitive eyes that they have, that acts as a protector against everything from wind and sand to water and ultraviolet. And so when they're in a low light situation, they can retract the dark lenses, and then you see the colored part of their eyes. And their eyes are gorgeous. Their eyes are all the range of colors that we have, and then some. We have seen kind of a mahogany red-brown, almost a cherry brown. We've seen almost a violet blue purple. We've seen more of a tan amber with flecks of green in it. So the spectrum of color that their irises have has some more addition than what we have. But
and can I share one of the pictures that you drew on one of these iris with the audience? Would it be okay for me to share one of your pictures? I'll
Yeah.
share just here.
Which one you got?
This one here.
Oh. When we were goofing around with Radar, Radar is their Earth media specialist. He's their keep the finger on the pulse of what Earth humans think about their extraterrestrial neighbors, because the Ponte recognize that our opinions about them are shaped through our media. Okay, so we know that Radar has studied anything science fiction related amongst our television and movies, and we were coming up with ideas for things that Earth humans would recognize that were extraterrestrial related, that then we could adapt to the Ponte. And this happened to stem off of an Avatar poster for the movie Avatar. Okay, and so the original movie Avatar had one of their people portrayed, and all you saw was part of the face and one eye in the Avatar poster. So Radar said, "Can you do that?" And I went, "I don't know, let me see." And that's where this image originally came from, was the Ponte takeoff of the Avatar poster.
As you can see here, they have beautiful, beautiful eyes. They're not monstrous.
Yeah. No. The nictitating lens would cover this whole thing. And in fact, you will oftentimes see the Ponte with an extra fold in the lid area up here. It almost looks bulgy up here, and it will catch the light different. And sometimes you'll see a couple of creases back here where we have typically just one. And so their upper eye area seems to appear fuller to me when I sketch a lot of them out as compared to Earth human. But trying to think if I have any other sketches here that demonstrate their eyes. Here's one with the lenses covering the eye. All right, so you can see this is one of their holidays that they celebrate every year in our month of January. They go into seclusion for 3 to 4 days. I think it's 4 days, 3 nights. During that time, they are instructed to do nothing but pray and say thank you for everything they can think of, and connect to the collective consciousness as they do so. They have a nickname for the collective consciousness, and they call it the soup, because it contains everything, okay? Like a bowl of vegetable soup has just all kinds of stuff in it. So in their holiday, the food that they eat when they go into seclusion is only soup. And so the phrase that they taught us is, we sip the soup, meaning yum yum. And they sip the soup, meaning they connect with and take into themselves all of that very connection of the collective consciousness as they're saying thank you for everything they can think of. So this is them sipping the soup, or connecting to the collective consciousness as they've gone into seclusion to say thank you. So that's where that originally came from. They are not the only nation that have a dark nictitating lens. This is a different star nation, and they also had the dark nictitating lens. we have been working on everything from the exoskeletal nations, like the insectoid nations, to and this based on an eyewitness sighting by one of our Ponte contactees, okay, who had this insectoid person, his name was Chev, by the way, show up and totally unexpectedly, and was extremely benevolent to her. And in fact, all of our contactees who have met these mantis type people, and this sketch is still a rough draft, by the way, this is not finished. What I do is I'll sketch it as completely as I can according to the witness's description. And then we ask, and I set it out in my studio and let it be for a while, waiting for them to come and correct anything that's wrong. So we're still waiting for corrections on this and have not seen them come to do that yet. But we've been getting other details about everything from their own anatomy. And here was one I did this week of their hands. And this started out as, how do you make a heart like this if you got no thumbs?
Okay.
So that was the initial part of the discussion. And so they were showing me various hand postures, but more than that, it gave me an opportunity to look at the details of their joints. All right. Do they have fingernails? Do they have finger ridges, meaning fingerprints? Do they have creases in their palms? Are there suction cups on the ends of their fingers? What are the details? And what we find with the Ponte is that each digit, each finger, each joint of the finger is almost twice as long as our joints. So if you take this joint at the very fingertip and double it, if you take this joint between those two and the main knuckle and double it, the wrist palm area is not quite twice as long. It is not. It is longer than ours and more slender. But the outside fingers on both sides are more opposable and have a greater flexibility and spread than ours do, and can wrap around and bend and act like a thumb on each side almost. It's not quite the same, but it's pretty close. And they don't seem to have any problem using chopsticks. So you can do all kinds of things.
It's interesting you mentioned about the digits, Sue, because it's been discovered in some parts of the world where skeleton that had 12 digits instead of 10. So that perhaps can be the Ia or the angelic aspect of the Ia.
There is a giant race that does not have an elongated skull that does have double row of teeth that possesses 6 fingers also. We know that that particular giant race also was found in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia specifically. We have talked to the Ponte about whether or not those people were some of the first mound builders here in North America. And the Ponte are indicating that it's extremely likely that some of, they're not saying all, because some of our mounds were created by the Native Americans that were indigenous to this continent. But some of the original mounds were started by a nation that was not Earth human of our size. Now, where this giant race with double sets of teeth and 6 fingers on each hand comes from, are they indigenous to here? That I cannot tell you. I have not had that conversation with the Ponte, and I've never asked them, so I don't know.
Okay. Maybe one day we could ask the Sasquatch to elaborate on that. Maybe
the Sasquatch would be interesting to talk to about the other giant race also, because they would have been of the same size and stature as to many of them. Now, on our planet, we have evidence of giant nations, plural, on various continents. And I am not convinced that they are all one race, nor that the burial places and things that we have found indicate that that nation originated on Earth. I'm not yet, I still think the jury's out on that one. I'm not quite sure that it's just people from here. I'm not sure where they're from. I don't know if it's a mix. That's a good question. That's part of that history that we're still waiting to get corroborated.
And the other pictures that you've mentioned about the is that something you can share with us with the long experience?
Oh, I don't know if I brought any of those folks out with me. I bet I did not. Nope, not. I have them, but they're in another portfolio in the house. I tell you what, the collection of sketches that I've done this year, since last Christmas, less than a year ago, almost a year, I have done several hundred portraits. I would say averaging 1.5 portraits per day. So 365 times 1.5. That's about the number of sketches I have done of Ponti, Sasquatch, or other Star Nation.
Wow.
And I know when I started because I didn't get these sketch pads with black paper like this until last Christmas. That was the first time I'd ever drawn with the chalk pastels, either white, black, or colors on black paper instead of white paper. Everything up to that point in time had been different. So we are slowly getting the word about the other star nations, and the Ponti have asked us to wait until the winter solstice this year in another, let's see, today's the 3rd, the solstice is in 21 days. 20 days? 19 days. It's the 21st or 22nd this year. So we still have 2.5 weeks before the official sanctioned release of Star Nation information, because we've been requested to hold off describing a lot of it until then, in detail, and we'll put it that way. But
and do you have some new Ponti members that just joined in?
We do. I have all kinds of fun things sitting here. This is Kananda. Kananda is visiting another person local to the Albuquerque area, a woman by the name of Linda Smith, who has been an experiencer of the Ponti and other star nations since she was like 3.5. Kananda has visited Linda's home with some of the blended staff members and children. Kananda helps teach the blended or hybrid. They don't like the word hybrid. They think it sounds too much like a car. So this is one of the hybrid children teachers and instructors. But if you want to see, what did I do with Tay's picture here? I'll show you one of the other blended employees of the Sandia Mountain Station. See, caught one of them peeking out from behind a curtain.
Wow.
That was one of the trainees. Oh, yeah. We were talking about hand structures before. I showed you the other hand one.
Oh.
So we're trying various kinds of things to understand all of that. Let's see, what did I do with the blended folks? Not that sketch pad. Let's see if I put it in this. So I've got 3 different sketch pads and all kinds of papers in front of me of things that have been done. I even have sketches that haven't gone anywhere yet.
Wow.
You see, I start things, and if I don't like how it's turning out, or if I've got proportions wrong, or something isn't quite right, then, like this one,
Wow.
this goes on the studio floor in the trash can, okay? But it happens to have a different star nation on the other side of the page,
Okay.
so I'm saving it. But do I have images of, let's see, where are Tay and some of the other, oh, yeah, I forgot I had that one. Remember when I said, how do you do the heart shape with your hands with no thumbs? They figured it out. You put your wrists together and you use all 4 fingertips.
Okay.
All right, so what else do we have here? Do we have Tay and... We have fun things that they request because they're attempting to let Earth humans know that they're trying to understand their culture. So that was Zoot learning basketball. I'm handling these by the edges because I've just torn them. You can see I've just torn them out of the sketch pad. You can see the ends haven't been cut off. I haven't sprayed a lot of these either yet.
Wow.
And so it's just chalk on black paper, and so it'll smudge if I don't handle it carefully. This one is an illustration of a young contactee in Dover, England. The little boy right here is named Micah Pearson. He and his family put out a podcast called Fascination Street. And Micah, when he first started getting visited, got visited by Radar and PETA. He plays music at night to go to sleep by, and he woke up to having Radar and PETA dancing in his bedroom to the music he was playing. And then they got in his bed and started jumping.
Wow.
So this is called No More Monkeys on the Bed.
Nice.
But based on a true story. Let's see, do I have one of the blended kids? Oh, here's a new staff member. This is one of Radar's newest apprentices. Her name is Nee. N-E-E is how I spell it.
Nee.
If she writes it, it's just an N, and people go, what do I do with that? So we asked her to add the vowels. They don't normally write their language with vowels. But I said, Nee, how do you want your pose to be? I'll do it any way you want. She asked for her head to be on her knees, hugging her knees, so that people would remember her name.
Ah, great. Knees, yes.
Okay. And
they come in different age groups. When they come as trainees or...
When they come as trainees, the youngest we've seen is 55. And the oldest member of the Sandia Mountain Information Station would be Dell. And he would have been born in the 1750s. He's a little bit older than Tilcomb. Tilcomb was born in 1777, and Dell was born in, I think, 1753. Somewhere between 1750 and 1753.
So they have very long age.
Normally they reside, or they live to be 400 years old. That's pretty average. 450 if they have really good health. However, any of them that explore the galaxy and spend significant amounts of time on a planet that is not their own home world subjects their bodies to more stress pressure, and their lifespans shorten by a good 50 years. So the Ponti that we interact with know that the likelihood that they will die at about age 350 is high.
Okay.
We've talked to them about all kinds of cultural things, everything from their food to their musical instruments. Oh, here's Tay. We were talking about the hybrid kids or staff members, the blended folks. Here's one of them. This is Tay.
Okay.
And Tay is holding a teddy bear in her hands.
Wow.
And she looks like she's a child. Sparse hair, not a lot of it. Very, very fine. She can't see it here. She does have ear cartilage, whereas the Ponti do not. She does have 4 fingers, although you can't see them in this image. Some of the hybrid kids have 4 fingers, some of them have 5.
And is she based here on Earth in certain bases, or
She's
she's?
here at the Sandia station. She's one of the few adult blended peoples. And when we talk to the Ponti about their blended folks or any blended Star Nation person, our natural curiosity is to say, what are they a blend of? Okay. Believe it or not, that's considered rude. And the reason it's considered rude is because it's like being Snoopy. Do you go up to a pregnant woman and say, tell me the genetics of your baby? No, we don't. Okay. If somebody adopts a child from another nation that's not their own Earth human nation growing up, if, say, I am Caucasian and I adopt a baby from Asia or Africa or Australia or wherever, and they look different than I do and their genetics are clearly different. Mm-hmm. If somebody came up to me and said, tell me the genetics of your baby, I would think that that was rude too. And so when they told us that asking about the genetics of the blended kids or staff members was rude, that you wait for them to volunteer the information on their own, that's considered right-minded, I went, okay. I want to know, but okay. But we have talked to them about their children. They consider children sacred.
Wow.
Their children, when they're born, are very, very similar in size to our preemie kids that are born a couple months early. About yay long. Wow. Tiny. Where you, in that picture, it looks like somebody's taking their pointer finger when in fact it was their pinky.
Wow. Okay. So they're basically, their Ponti female have, they hold the same type of gestation period that females
shorter.
do?
No, their gestation is shorter than ours. Ours is 285 days. Theirs is closer to 245, 250-ish. I've never asked specifically. I've kind of gotten a general idea. And not all of the Ponti women have the capacity to have children themselves. We know that varies amongst their population. Some of them can carry a viable full-term pregnancy. Others cannot even become pregnant. They don't have the developed organs to carry a baby. Mm-hmm. We've talked to the Ponti about what do those people do? What do the individual members of their society do if they want to have children and can't? And what they described to us was fascinating. First of all, they said, you must understand, we consider the entire process from fertilization to being able to breathe air, birth, sacred. The places where all of this is done, those places are considered holy. So if you walk into one of what they call, and the best translation we could come up with was, they call them womb houses, womb as in uterus.
Wow.
So in the womb houses, if a family wishes to have a child and they are unable to have the sperm and egg or the capacity to carry that child in utero within them, they go to the womb houses, and a child is how can I say this? The egg and sperm are fertilized in their presence in the womb house and placed in its growing medium in ceremony. like you might if you go to church. It is prayed over. I'm getting goosebumps. It is blessed. And the fertilized ovum, once it develops its own neural network and can receive and send telepathic response, that growing child is talked to every day, is taught every day, is interacted with every day. The families come to the womb house on a regular basis. They don't live there, but they do come and go. But the womb house caretakers of these growing babies and children consider their duties sacred. And it's a combination between a doctor, a teacher, and a grandparent, for lack of a better way to say things. They sing to the children telepathically, they teach them, they talk to them, they touch when they can, but for the most part, they treat each fertilized egg as a sentient being to be loved and cared for from the moment of fertilization until that being can breathe air on its own and leave their care.
Wow.
So this whole concept, this whole discussion of, we have in our heads this Hollywood picture of test tube babies lined up in rows that look like strange alien hybrid things, like some weird science fiction experiment gone wrong. Nothing could be further from the truth emotionally. This is not an emotionally sterile environment. This is not them raising a child that's a blend of a plant and an animal and quickly growing something in 2 months' time to an adult size that has no upbringing consciousness to it. This is careful care, love, and nurturing in a sacred and holy manner from the moment a family decides they would like to have a child until that child can go home with them breathing air.
Wow, so it just shows that there's a lot that we don't understand about the plant.
There's a lot we don't understand, but they bend over backwards to protect their children and ours. Because all children are sacred and holy to them.
And they mentioned about also our planet being such a wonderful, I would say our planet is almost like a noble planet in the galaxy, such a beautiful planet. And they've mentioned about water. Can you elaborate on that? The water.
Yes.
And so can I share one of the screenshots I took for your presentations about the water? So as you've been describing, I'll be showing the picture so it can actually bring more the message for as you describe it here. So
well, when they think about Earth and we Earth humans, the Ponti call us Kee-wah-hoo. And Kee-wah-hoo is translated blue water people. Okay, so we Earth humans are the Kee-wah-hoo. We are the blue water people. Our planet, as largely a water world, 75% water, is well known in this arm of the galaxy. 75% of the star nations who visit us don't come to see us. They come to see our world because they want to go talk to the sentient nations in our oceans. They come for our water and our ocean life, the whales and the cetaceans. There are species, nations that came to visit our water world and decided they liked it so much that they stayed, but they stayed in the oceans. There are species in our oceans that have no other equivalent of DNA anywhere in what we think of as the animal kingdom, and they don't know how they got here. Okay, but the whale nations are very well known by other water world peoples. And so if you are in our galaxy and you live on a water world, or if you are a sentient star nation that is aquatic, when you come to Earth, the first thing you do is go into the oceans to talk to the whales, the octopus, and the deep, deep water, amorphous, meaning doesn't have a consistent shape, folks that live in the deep ocean pressures who speak by flashing lights. They have a light language that they generate light like a jellyfish can, okay? But Teal'c tells us that the biggest thing that brings star nations to our world in the first place is because we're a water world. We're a water planet. Where there's water, there's life. So we, as a land-based, two-footed terrestrial nation, still have not fully explored our own oceans on our own world. I think we probably know more about the moon than we know about our own oceans, to be honest. And yet, we have sentient nations that are swimming in our oceans that we still don't know how to translate their language. Okay? We have a lot of work to do, but the Panti regularly speak with the aquatic nations on our world because they're important here. They're very important.
As you can see the picture, I don't know if you see the picture of the Ponty with the humpback right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a picture that you drew. And
Yep.
So the
Yep.
Ponty do swim with them in the ocean, right?
Oh, when that was Commander Teal'c, and when he's off duty, the first thing he does is leave the station and head down to the Great Barrier Reef because he loves swimming down there. Just absolutely loves the water here.
Well, so
when radar first came to Earth, he was kind of like, oh, I get to go to a water world. And then he realized that he was stationed in the desert underneath a mountain, far, far away from any water. And he was extremely disappointed.
I can understand it. It's such a beautiful water world, and it's just amazing that the humpbacks have so much to share with humanity, right?
They do. Their language is what is considered a tonal language, and is quite complex. The Panti do have cetacean language experts. The one gal that I know is Thera, and she's now stationed at an aquatic underwater station that the Panti manage between the eastern edge of Australia and New Zealand. So they call that one the Tasman Sea Base. We know that there are 4 underwater, deep ocean, aquatic information stations like the Sandia Mountain Information Station that are designed as interstellar information stations where any nation who comes with a question about Earth can go to an information station and hopefully get an answer. So the 4 aquatic ones, I think we know where most of those are, if not all of them. The 4 land-based Ponti managed information stations, right now I only for sure know the one of the Sandia Mountain. I have a suspicion about others, but I don't have a confirmation yet.
So when we say about the 4 ocean bases, it's something that you know, but you don't want to share the actual name of the location. Is that correct?
Well, okay. We know that there is one between the eastern edge of just south of Egypt There's a large river that meets the ocean that goes and flows back westward from the east coast of Africa to a large lake, which I think is Lake Victoria in Africa. And between there and the Seychelles, which is islands north of Madagascar, I know that there is a facility. I know that there is a North Sea aquatic station north of England, Scotland, and that the vast majority of the folks that visit Europe come from the North Sea base. Trying to think of where the other one is. Oh, it's down right off of the tip of South America. If you go east of the tip of South America, you'll find a small group of islands between there and Antarctica. And I know that there's an underwater facility there. I'd have to go back and look at the actual name of the island area or the grouping of islands. But it's down where the water in the ocean gets extremely stormy and is a hard crossing if you're crossing on the surface. The 4 land-based facilities, I do not know all of those information station locations. And please remember, this is not all the Ponti on our planet. There are other underground and underwater facilities that are Ponti that are not official interstellar information stations, but just their own facilities. Okay.
So basically, in the Pacific Ocean, there must be a lot of, like in Hawaii or in the.
That would be my guess, is that you would see more. And part of this, honestly, according to the Ponti, is historic jurisdiction. Various star nations who have interacted on Earth for millennia have typically kind of claimed an area and watched over it, cared for it, or been in one location for thousands of years. And so they recognize jurisdictional areas of other star nations on our world and have some of that backstory and history that we're just at the very, very beginning stages of learning it even exists.
And even our modern submarines, they won't be able to detect them because they have cloaking technology to prevent themselves from being seen by our submarines here on Earth.
They have cloaking technology that's amazing. Both personal physical body cloaking kind of technology or entire craft cloaking technology.
Can you explain to the viewers what is, most people maybe don't understand the cloaking technology. Can you just, in very simple terms, what is cloaking?
Well, okay, so cloaking means going invisible or going hidden, all right? Not being able to be seen visually by the human eye spectrum, okay? That does not necessarily mean that it can't be seen by something that's outside of the human eye spectrum. You know, and I know that there are animals who can perceive infrared and ultraviolet with their eyes differently than us, and they're earth animals, okay? We know that there are dogs and other animals who can hear different auditory spectrum than we can hear. We know that there are animals that can emit sounds that are below our human hearing that can stop us dead in our tracks, like an elephant or a tiger can administer a sub-auric, below human hearing sound that essentially freezes their prey so that you can't move, all right? So we know that there are all those kinds of variations here. The cloaking technology that we know about their ships and their person is everything from as simple as cloud camouflage, if a ship is in the sky overhead. Just about every star nation ship that enters into Earth's atmosphere has the capability of generating its own cloud camouflage. That's not unusual and is pretty standard. What we didn't know until after we learned that part is that they could shape the clouds into anything they want, and so they can shape the cloud to appear the way they wish. We do know that the same technology that allows them to go from a standing still position to suddenly gone in our atmosphere, that same technology makes them go like that in our water too.
Wow.
Same tech, no different. Do I understand how their ability to go hidden, invisible, cloaked works? To be honest with you, we never ask them to explain their technology. We figure if they want to volunteer, they will. Sometimes we ask around the edges of it, but neither Otter nor I are scientists. Both of us have college degrees, but that doesn't necessarily make us scientific researchers. And when they launch into starting to describe the quantum physics behind what they're doing, our eyes kind of glaze over, and we need somebody to talk to them about this who understands the physics behind it and can track what they're trying to describe, because not only are they trying to describe a technology we don't have, they're trying to describe a science I've never studied. And so my learning curve is I don't even know the words in English, and on Earth, with our technology to date, much less understanding their advanced technology. So I'm the wrong person to take dictation and understand what I'm getting and what I'm missing about their science. This is exactly why we want people from all different kinds of careers to study the Telepathy 101 primer, to invite the Ponte to come visit them so that they can have the repeat visits and start having these discussions themselves. A lot of our contactees are keeping track of what the Ponte have told them so that we can pool information. Otter and I can't be the only ones to talk to them. That's just not possible, practical between now and official first contact. We need help, and we need other people who are brave enough to say, okay, I'll invite a strange 4.5 foot tall person with a large head and dark eyes to come talk to me and instruct me. I don't know them. I don't know their people or their culture. I don't know what they're going to do to me, but I'll let them come. That's pretty brave on the part of our contactees. But they do it because they are so hungry to learn about what else and who else is out there visiting us.
And also, there's, if I understand it, there's also greeting protocols as the Ponte would have.
They've taught us all kinds of fun greeting protocols. The very first thing that Commander Teal'c taught us is that some star nations possess very stout claws, okay, on all of their digits. And their claws are sharp. And for those nations, if you thrust your hand out to shake hands, it's considered a threat. You've just thrust your claws at them. Now, our claws are pretty rudimentary and not very strong and not very sharp. However, the principle is the same. You don't thrust your claws towards somebody. Instead, what they taught us is that most Star Nation sentient species who possess hands, not all of them do, but those who possess hands, understand that if you show someone your empty hands and you put your fingertips together like this over the central part of your torso, the central part of most any nation's torso is where their most important circulating organs lie, for the most part. So you're putting your hands over your heart, and this gesture is considered another way of saying hello. That's a neutral and acceptable and understood universal gesture across star nations. What they've also taught us is you can take this set of hands and open it to form a bowl. They call this gesture offering the bowl. When you offer the bowl, it means, welcome, I have something for you. Welcome, would you like to sit in this chair? Welcome, would you like this food or this beverage? So this is an offering bowl, and you are offering food or beverage, or a place to sit, or yourself. So offering the bowl is also a universally understood gesture by star nations that have hands. Because it doesn't matter if you have 3 fingers or 6 fingers, you can still do this, you can still do this. That's why they're universal.
And
so that's one of the things that they've taught us.
Can I share this? One of your beautiful presentations, you showed a very nice picture that you just described the 4 steps. Can I share this with the audience?
Sure, please, yeah. I hold the light for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that one. Okay, don't assume that you can touch them, right? Some star nations that are multidimensional in nature can be dangerous to us if we touch them. You don't touch unless you ask. You don't hug unless you ask. You don't offer to shake hands. This namaste type gesture of putting your fingertips and your palms together over your torso and then slowly opening them out to a bowl is what they highly recommend as a universally understood first gesture.
And you mentioned also when Commander Tenkom after a telepathic session, there's a type of goodbye that he would actually encourage us to learn. And is that something that you want to share with us?
Sure, they taught us one of their ways of saying goodbye, and they were particularly detailed about describing this, and we wanted to make sure that we had the translation right. But when one person who's close to another person, or one holy person talks to another person, or one official representative speaks with another official party, one of their more formal, sacred, special ways of saying goodbye is, I hold the light for you. And it, believe it or not, comes with its own nonverbal gestures. I hold the light for you. And you can use 2 hands if you want. So basically you're saying, I hold the light for you. I hold the light of you. I hold the light of me. I hold the light of the soup. I hold the light, the right-mindedness, the unconditional love. That's the light. So I hold the unconditional love for you. I hold the light for you. So this is gesture 1. Gesture 2 is you form a circle with fingers, if you can, thumb, if you can, or all your fingers curled round into a circle if you don't have a thumb. And you breathe in through the circle that you formed with your fingers. So that's the second part. I hold the light for you. I breathe in the light with you. I breathe in that unconditional love with you. We exhale our light together and share light breath with all. So the whole thing goes, I hold the light for you, like this. I breathe in the light with you. We exhale our light together and share light breath with all.
And can I show you your wonderful screenshot that you've done in the presentation for the audience here?
Sure.
Right. This is the one that you shared in your previous
What
presentation.
did I do? Oh, yes.
That's wonderful.
Yep. So that's Tilcum holding the light, holding unconditional love, holding right-mindedness, holding caring for self and for others. So the light of him, the light of you, the light of all. That's the light. It's everything.
And so there you go. The benevolence of this type of sharing can be this wonderful evidence of the caring and understanding our connectedness.
We find that the Panti frequently have double and triple meanings for things, and it's part of their culture for things to mean several things at once. And so it's also part of their humor to use word plays for double and triple entendres. But when they get serious and when they get sacred, when they go down deep to connect with what we would call God or the Creator or the All, they're real serious about what they do because they know how real it is and what change it can bring about. And so they, very early on, when I was beginning to do sketches, Trudy asked me to sketch her praying. And I said, okay, I can do that, but why? And she said, we find it's very important when working with growing sentient cultures to let them know that we pray, that that's a cultural overlap that they find very important. And I said, what do you pray for? And she said, I pray for peace. Okay. Okay. I can understand that. I can get down with that.
Beautiful.
So anything that they can find that overlaps cultures, whether it's learning dances, musical sharing, food is another common cultural overlap. Caring actions that are spontaneous, all of those things that are really important. When it comes right down to it, our money isn't important, but our families and our emotions and the legacy that we leave behind at the end of the day end up being the thing that we're remembered for most. And the Panti are sensitive to that because at the end of the day, no matter if you're a billionaire or somebody who doesn't have two nickels to rub together, we're all going to die. We're all going to return to creation and creator. And hopefully we'll recycle in a good way. But you can't take it with you. And the important things are the connections that you have to others and the actions that you've taken on your journey, the legacy you leave.
And that's a nice way to say it, Sue. Do you think one day, I think one day it will come to that, that we'll create these centers for the advancements of interdimensional communications with the Panti in other star nations, so we can really expand our understanding that...
Oh, they would love it if we would develop an interstellar cultural exchange education program. They would love it. They encourage it, actually, where we create a facility able to handle the different physical environments required by various star nations or us, so that exchange of information can take place in a setting that's comfortable for everybody and in a manner that's comfortable for everybody. And so that varies from culture to culture, and how we teach our people versus how the Panti teach their people versus how the Iya or another star nation teaches their people, all very widely. Teaching styles manners of education vary widely. Length of education, whether it's 2 weeks or 200 weeks, varies. It just depends on the nation, what's being taught, what's being learned. But one of the things that we first spoke with Telecom about was essentially an interstellar college level exchange program. But it would take a certain personality type to be able to handle doing that exchange, leaving Earth to go to another world to learn.
But perhaps one day we can establish one here on Earth, so we can.
They're hoping so. They're hoping so very quickly, as a matter of fact, because what they have found historically is that the sharing that comes out of that kind of exchange program helps a great deal toward sharing knowledge about what are these new strange looking people really like. Tell me what you know is what the rest of the population wants to know. So the first information coming back from the exchange students is critical for integration of cultures.
And I think you've started this process already by a new coloring book that you just decided
We
to.
have a coloring book that we have just published of the Ponti, and we have a second one in the works that will begin to introduce the other star nations slowly but steadily. So the official first contact coloring book of the Ponti is based on all of the things that the Ponti have taught us, whether or not it has to do with right-mindedness, or it has to do with, there's Telecom swimming with the whales, okay, their interaction with other species on this planet. Here's one with Telecom with the elephant nation.
Wow,
okay.
nice.
And we have Drudy sipping her tea with her scarf on her head in her favorite robe. Nice. So what do they like when they're off duty? Okay, we're trying to introduce them and get them known as people. All of this is part and parcel of the new nonprofit called the Infinite Voice Project that supports official first contact. If you take the Ponti phrase or word for telepathy, telepathy in their language translates as infinite voice. Oh. So the Infinite Voice Project is essentially the telepathy project, their means of communication. And we started this nonprofit so that the spread of the information can get out there faster and easier. And as a nonprofit, we can accept donations and people can write it off on their taxes. But essentially, we're looking now for help with getting Earth ready for official first contact. And the Infinite Voice Project is, because Otter and I cannot be in all places at once, we now have people on the board of the Infinite Voice Project who are going to events and places and lecturing about the Ponti for us, because they too are contactees. We have a variety of people around the world who are now writing about and lecturing about their own interactions with the Ponti. And so we created this because we wanted to start the generation that is now age 10 and under off on the right foot, understanding that we have Star Nation neighbors and family out there. And there's a lot of them that they don't have to be afraid of. Let's help introduce them. So this coloring book was published in October. The next one, fingers crossed, will be ready by the winter solstice and will begin to do the very start of introducing other star nations.
And I think so. This is great for all generations. This coloring book. I mean, it's a very nice way to even those that are afraid of this topic or afraid of star nations. It's a very gentle way to bring that
It's a very gentle way, and it gives you everything from bits and pieces of their culture. Here we've got a page describing the difference between the nictitating lenses and their iris colors. The very same question that you raised here on the show, we address here on a single coloring book page.
Beautiful.
What we did not know is we had this printed by one of the largest coloring book manufacturers in North America.
Wow.
These people have been in the coloring book printing business for decades, since 1970s, so 50 some years. The CEO of the coloring book company called our CEO of the Infinite Voice Project and said, "This is the most amazing project to cross our desk for printing in the last decade. We expect this to go huge." The number one seller of books on Amazon right now is adult coloring books. They sell faster than even the very best known authors' novels. Okay?
Wow.
So the timing of putting out a coloring book for any age bracket, you're right, is absolutely stellar. And now that the next one is going to contain detailed information about other star nations that is accurate, straight from them, through the contactees, is going to start the process of getting Earth humans used to at least the images of some of our interstellar neighbors and relatives, because we got family out there.
And this is available in Amazon?
Right now, I don't know if this has gotten to Amazon. The coloring book company was going to put it up on Amazon, I believe, this month.
Okay.
What it is available from is the coloring book manufacturer. You can get it from them. But there is a link, I believe, on the official firstcontact.com website to how to get this. So this is the inviting ET book that you have here.
Yeah, great. And as a matter of fact, can you actually visit your website together so you can show people this is a very informational place for people to obtain that information.
There's a lot of things that you can download for free and look all over. We've got documents galore in the documents section, translated into a variety of languages, French, German, etc., etc. The Telepathy 101 primer is there.
So can I just open the share file? So
yeah, go for it.
You can actually walk us through this as
I'll be happy to.
As we go through this right now. So this is the main official website.
So if you go to this is the first page, and this is Commander Teal'c. You can see just the tips of his fingers in that namaste gesture. And if you look in the bottom of this page, you see images of the various crew members. And if you click on the audio link, it will tell you how to say their name. So if you click on that one, it should give you the pronunciation of Drudy. Maybe he hasn't got those filled yet. If you go to the top of the page, you'll see a menu in the upper left corner of your page.
Yeah, I'm just going to show the rest of the.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, see all of them. Thera and Sarah and Depp and Thought and Nawal and Zufu and Del and Kit and Mim. We know all these guys. Orth and Faral and Tima and Tay and Jael. So we are, remember, there's more than 200 Ponti over at the station right now.
Wow.
This is maybe a dozen plus. There's a lot of folks that we don't know the names of.
Okay.
There's a lot of trainees that have traipsed through our house, picked up our stuff, put it down, borrowed it, brought it back, talked to us, bumped into us, interacted with us, knocked stuff off the shelves, knocked stuff off the walls, rummaged around in the cupboards, rifled through all of my sketches. All of that goes on in our house. And people think that we exaggerate the amount of activity at our house. We don't. And in fact, when we have guests that are experiencers come over to, say, sleep on our sofa in our living room, stay overnight, just crash on the couch, they're up half the night with all the noises and interaction in the house. And the very first thing, nearly 100% of them say, the very next morning, when I come into the kitchen to make coffee in the morning, is, "You aren't kidding about the amount of activity you have, are you?" I said, "No, I told you. I didn't believe you. Do you believe me now?" Huh?
Yeah, very high traffic.
Very high traffic. And we've had a number of guests come who we offer for them to stay out in our camping trailer, which is where I'm sitting right now, to sleep instead of on the couch because there's a queen size bed. And they refuse because they want to be in the thick of the interaction and the noise and the sound and the movement. And they want to see who they can catch and see.
Okay.
And so, no, the amount of activity in our house is unprecedentedly huge, and we're serious when we say they traipse in and out of our house all day, all night. They make noise, they borrow things, they move things. We mean it, and we have witnesses. So
That's and what's nice about your website, Sue, is that you pronounced for people who don't know how to pronounce, you click the play here. I'm just gonna click Telecom so we can hear you.
I don't know that all of those. I'm looking at the
Yeah,
zero.
I'm just gonna
Do
click
they work
and
now?
yeah, I'm just
Right.
gonna click and we're just gonna listen for a few seconds.
Yeah.
You heard that?
I did not hear that.
Yeah, I heard that. So it
Okay.
was good. It was great. So it's great. So people don't know how to pronounce it. Just
You
click on
may
play.
not have it being broadcast. Do you have your headset plugged into your computer?
Yes, I do.
You're hearing it in your ears, but we're not hearing it on your broadcast.
Okay, great. So then people can just click on play and they'll be able to hear it from their own computer. Okay.
If you go up to the menu and go to the frequently asked questions section,
Yeah.
and then scroll down to the bottom, you will see phrases and words that the Ponti have taught us in their language, along with pronunciations as well.
Wow.
So here's the Ponti words and phrases. So
nice. That's wow, beautiful addition.
today, Kee-wah-hoo. I know how to say these things. Hiki, yeah, Kee-wah-hoo. Remember, most of the time you don't see vowels in their language. You'll see them if they're borrowed.
So Kee-wah-hoo means water people, right?
Yeah, blue water people.
Blue water people.
Yeah, so the wa, the capital is, the W is capitalized because that's the emphasis on that syllable. Kee-wah-hoo instead of Kee-wah-hoo, right?
It almost sounds like Kiwani, the researcher for the Sasquatch.
Oh yeah, we know Kee-wah-hoo lapsaritis, as a matter of fact.
He must have smiled when he heard that. Kee-wah-hoo, Kiwani.
I don't know. Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
Oh, fantastic. Where are they? Well,
yeah, we're adding to this list all the time. To me, dictated why they're here, and that's what she said verbatim on air in one of the first radio interviews we ever did. If you scroll up to the top of the page, you see other documents and things that you can click on. There's the coloring book link. If you click the coloring book link and the book link, it'll take you to where to go to buy them.
Hold on. Let me just go back here. Okay. We'll get that official store here.
Yep. All right. So when you click, which one did you click on here?
The official store. So.
All right. Oh, this is the Sandia Redbubble store, where some of those images, like of the whale and the elephant and PETA and Drudy with her scarf and Radar moonwalking on the moon and Guitar Radar and some of the other ones, you can buy on various things from t-shirts to mugs to covers for your laptop to whatever else. And so if you want to help support Official First Contact, anything you buy on this Redbubble store goes directly to the behind the scenes costs for us of Official First Contact. To be honest, I have been borrowing more than $10,000 a year from my retirement for 6 years in a row to bring Earth this information. It has reduced my regular psychic business so much because right now I wake up at 4:30 in the morning on average, and I am working the vast majority of the day with the Ponti or for Official First Contact from 4:30 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. when I go to bed. I allow myself 6 hours for sleep. I usually am up for at least an hour during the night, which shortens my sleep to 5 hours.
Wow.
And all of that and the retirement money that I've taken out to sustain doing this, we're not operating in the red by any stretch of the imagination. I'm operating at poverty levels right now.
So ladies and gentlemen, please go to this wonderful shop here and support the project here. Wonderful product.
Do that. You can send in donations through PayPal if you wish. You can buy the Inviting ET book on Amazon. You can get the coloring book. But all of those monies go to sustaining the information we put out there for the Ponti and for Official First Contact and for the other Star Nations. The Star Nations are not paying us, guys. They aren't. And websites and travel and the time it takes to share and put together the information to share with you. The only thing that Otter and I are trying to do is keep food in the pantry and pay our bills. We are not looking to make a profit. There is no profit. There is no profit. We are operating at a several $1,000 loss every year.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, a wonderful book here that's on her website here, available now, Inviting ET, and her new book right now, Coloring Book of the Ponti, which is fantastic for all age groups, honestly. And
the next one will be out within 3 weeks. Fingers crossed.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is so much information here that you can support our project and educate yourself here.
People can volunteer with the Infinite Voice Project. We're always looking for volunteers of various specialities. Right now, I could use a volunteer to help edit closed captions for the next video presentation that we're putting out, because I realized that when we uploaded the videos to YouTube, that the Google Translate does not do closed captions very well and is riddled with errors. And so just even if all you do is know English and can edit a sentence, we can use your help. If you know how to draw, we can use your help. If you know how to translate into another language, we can use your help. If you can share your story of contact with our story gatherer, Anita Evans, so that we're pooling all of these overlapping stories so that we as the first contactees, the first experiencers, can share with other Earth humans and say, you know, it was a little strange at first, but you get used to it and they're kind of fun and they're not so bad. And no, it wasn't scary after we understood.
And I think I agree with that, because I think the Ponti made a very clear statement about what humanity will gather from learning telepathy as something most important thing they will ever undertake in their lifetime here on Earth.
I don't disagree with that, because no matter if you ever use it to talk to a Star Nation person, if you can trust your own telepathic skill set, even if all you do is use it for emergencies for you and your family, and that's it, you've gained something, and something that could be life-saving. You don't know. So you don't have anything to lose and everything to gain, but trying.
And ladies and gentlemen, please visit the website here. They actually have it's a free PDF for all of humanity on different languages, and actually we didn't with it, let me see if we can go on that and show the different languages that you guys have provided here.
There's a
For the
lot.
listeners.
I think there's at least 13
Uh,
of them now.
yeah, and I'm going to bring this on screen here just to show to the audience that
We're looking for a sign language interpreter to sign the Telepathy 101 primer now too, because we learned from some of our deaf followers that not everyone who is deaf can read.
exactly.
So you got lots of different languages there.
So they're the languages that are actually being presented. It's fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, this is free of charge.
All of this is free. If
Donate.
you want to go to the group practice exercises, you can find them in English, German, and French. The frequently asked questions section is now in 5 languages. The Sasquatch presentation is now in English and Dutch, and we're looking for a French translator for the Sasquatch and their telepathic connection. The archeoplanetography right now, we're still working on and need to tweak. The Beginner's Guide to the Ponti is in English and German. And who is Sandia really, while it's in English, was written by a Frenchman.
Wow. Wow. And ladies and gentlemen, just to show you here, just if you click the, there you go. You can click here and download directly to your computer anywhere on Earth. I mean, this is fantastic technology. We didn't have 20, 30 years ago. Now we have. It's such a wonderful time on this planet to be able to share so much information so quickly.
And all of these translations have been done by native speakers. And so it's not like we used Google Translate on Teni's Telepathy 101 primer for these other languages. We had a native speaker go through line by line and translate each line the best way they knew how.
Right.
So that's where those translations came from. And so fingers crossed, they don't have very many errors.
Well, just to show the level of excitement of humanity.
It was.
Want to partake, to co-create.
We had acquired translations, or were working on translations in 10 languages by volunteers across the planet within the first 100 days of the Telepathy 101 primer being published. And so the action and reaction of the people across the planet was, I want to translate this for my people. And so if we have any of your listeners who have a desire to help with translation and they want the originals in order to translate, give us a shout and we can help out with that.
Great. And
we're glad to have other languages that we do not have currently. I don't think we have Russians. I don't think we have Farsi. I know we don't have Arabic. So there are a variety of languages that we are missing.
Or Mandarin would be nice for the Chinese community. Mandarin?
We have, I think we do have Mandarin.
Really? Wow, that's fantastic.
I'm pretty sure we do.
Great. It's just, last question for you, Sue. For those that undertake the telepathy, and there's a certain, how should I say, suggestion by the Ponti who want to take this seriously. What would you recommend for those? If those who already undertook this and didn't have any experiences, what would you recommend for them?
Okay, a couple of things. All right, so if you would like the Ponti to visit you personally in your home, what do they tell us that you should do? All right, so here's the list. First, think of them like you think of people. They're not bug-eyed aliens. They're people. They all have names. They all have families. They all have things that they love. They all have things that they hate. And they came here to learn about us and our planet and are absolutely thrilled with any of us that want to teach them. Okay, so what they suggest is, first, download the Telepathy 101 primer and begin 30 minutes of practice with feedback every day. You can do that with your family. You can do that with coworkers. You can find a telepathy practice study partner with somebody else who's studying the primer. via the Twitter account. You can practice on your pets. You can go to the mall and see if you can ping people telepathically. There's a lot of different ways to practice and get feedback. But you need to get those areas of your brain which haven't been used for telepathy, used to working with it. It's like if you came to me and said, Sue, I'd like to learn to play the keyboard, you would think it was absolutely normal if I said, okay, you need to practice 30 minutes a day. Here's your workbook. I want you to practice this one song every day for 30 minutes. Come back next week. We'll see how you do, and maybe we'll give you another one. So you advance step by step. You would think that was totally normal. This is like that. You got to practice a little bit every day, get your brain used to it, and you start working with it. It takes about 30 days before you start being able to telepathically distinguish who's talking to you as different from your own head thought voice. After 100 days or so, 3 months-ish of practice with feedback, then that's about the right amount of time where you're ready to send out your first invitation to the Ponte to come visit you. And what Teeny reminds us is that telepathy travels on an emotional carrier wave. And the more emotional oomph, joy, if you want, happiness, emphasis behind your telepathic hello, the better. Now, if you start to get a telepathic response, the thing that you should not do is stop listening to whatever the response is and start examining it to see if it's real. You'll cut it off. You're shifting from left brain or right brain to left brain, and you're going to lose it. So you have to wait for the entire telepathic message with all the emotions, all the images, all the words, all the feelings, anything that's contained within it to finish before you do your examination of it. You'll have all the time in the world after it's done to check it out upside down, backwards, forwards, inside out, and every other way you want to. But while it's happening, don't stop it to say, I don't know if I believe this is real. Okay? You can do that discernment and tweezing apart after it's done. But if you're getting a response, don't interrupt it. Just keep it going. When you receive a telepathic message, it can be extremely subtle, or it can bowl you over sideways in your chair and you end up literally on the ground. I have had star nations come into our living room who are so strong that I'll be sitting upright having a conversation with my spouse, and suddenly I'm over on my side because a star nation has come in and said hello, and I go, oh, and you don't know what to do with all that energy because it's so massive. Overwhelm is a beginning problem that a lot of contactees have. So is insomnia, by the way. And insomnia becomes a problem for 2 reasons. One, if they come down to your house and talk to you and interact with you, or if you go outside at their nudging and you see a ship, and it's your first time, you get all excited. They came to see me, they came to see me, ah! And you lay awake in bed at night going, well, are they coming back? Maybe they won't come back. Maybe they didn't like me. What if they do come back? What are they going to do to me? And so you have 10,000 questions running in your head of all the what ifs. And you become night vigilant, meaning every little movement in the house, every sound, every bump, every stray thought, you become more vigilant about, because have they come back? Are they coming back? Did they just try and contact me? And you begin to become aware that their movements and their interactions are more nocturnal, whereas ours are more daytime oriented. So after dark, the Ponti are out and about doing their regular thing and maybe coming to see you, and you don't want to miss them. And so night vigilance and insomnia can become a problem.
And so would that be a way of saying that a good way to practice that 30 minutes a day would be mainly after the evening, where most of the people in cities, whatever, tend to go to bed?
I think
or it
I would
doesn't really
say,
matter?
honestly, it's any time that you get into a sleepy, daydreamy kind of state. That's your most receptive state telepathically. And so I would say if that's normal for you in the evenings, then yes, I would agree with you. But if you're a night owl and you stay up all night and you sleep during the day, maybe a different time of day works better for you. I find that when I'm drawing their portraits and sketching, it's really easy for me to slip into that receptive state of connecting with them, because whenever I draw, I go timeless. I totally lose track of whether it's been 5 minutes or 5 hours. And that timelessness sense, when you get into that kind of a state, you are at your most receptive telepathically. If you download the Telepathy 101 primer and you want to know more details about what Otter and I say about asking them to come visit, what Tilcum and Tani of the Ponti say about asking them to come visit, what the other contactees that had success in inviting them and getting visits at the very beginning after the primer was published have to say, well, their stuff is in the Inviting E2 book too. And so if you don't want to have to reinvent the CE5 wheel, so to speak, read the Inviting ET book, and it'll answer a lot of questions, everything from the greeting gestures to what do you do if a portal opens up right in front of you? What do you do if you turn to your side and suddenly there's somebody standing there? How do you ask a pilot to land? What do you do if you see them landing? How do you indicate to them that you're friendly and that they don't have to be scared of you? How do you know if you should be scared of them? What do you do about missing time, and what is it really? I mean, we cover a lot in this book. Everything from how do you address a dozen people all dealing with fear and overwhelm at the same time, to what's that word for blue water people again? I mean, all of that is in the Inviting ET book. It's a skinny little book. You can probably go through it in an evening, but it's deceptively full of information from us, from the Ponti, and from the other contactees. So we tried to make it easy. We tried to make it practical. And now that we've got a year since the Inviting ET was published, we have more stuff to add. So I suspect there's going to be another edition coming out sometime between now and official first contact that adds those details. Wow. We've got a few other projects in the works first that we got to finish.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, support Sue and Reverend Arthur and the Infinite Voice Project. It's such a wonderful service to humanity. And the book and the coloring book will really bring you up to speed, and the PDF 101 primer. I mean, it's such wonderful knowledge. I think this is just the beginning. There's a lot more knowledge coming forward as we progress through the months and years to come.
We have nations who have been exploring this galaxy for millions of years, who are willing to talk to us, share with us, and get us on our first baby steps going outside of our own solar system. I suggest we find some really good teachers and learn, because otherwise we're going to be walking into stuff blindly without knowing any history, any backstory, any good, any bad, any indifferent. We just won't know it all.
Yeah, so we have to know our neighborhood as we...
Yes, yes.
And
who are the people in the neighborhood?
So that's really Well, Sue, thank you so much for this
Thank you
wonderful
for having
interview.
me again. This has
The
been delightful.
wonderful hand drawing, fantastic. You're beautiful. I mean, you're a very gifted artist, Sue.
I wasn't.
Thank
I
you.
hadn't drawn until the Ponte asked me to do the first portrait of Tilcum. It is because of their assistance that my skill set has gotten to where it is now. And I have another video that I am narrating right now about the portraits of the Ponte, because as you draw them, you talk to them and you get all kinds of information. So the narration of that, we're editing the closed captions of that now and adding some music to it, and it should be out within the next week or so, before the winter solstice. So watch for the portraits of the Ponte narrated version, the extraterrestrial art of Sue Walker. So that will be coming out on YouTube video on my channel sometime in the next 10 days, fingers crossed.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. It's so exciting to have all these wonderful sketches and the coloring book and the incoming book about the history of our
There's
galaxy.
a lot. We have a lot of
So
information.
much news coming by the end of this year in 2020, just before official first contact. And what would be something you'd like to share just before we leave? Something that you'd like to share about the things that are coming at us right now, economic challenges, to the earth changes, to the food security. What is it that you'd like to share from your heart, or the point you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I would have to say, we're not going to survive this trying to do it solo by ourselves. Not us as personal individuals, not us as communities, towns, villages, cities, not us as states, provinces, countries, not us even as continents. This world has to come together because we have a global environment crisis that will affect us in a way that's going to include a lot of starvation and death if we don't start working together. And so we not only need to talk to each other, help each other, get off our duffs and take action instead of just tweeting about it or sharing about it on Twitter. If the Pontes say, you know what, planting trees helps, then by God, don't talk about planting trees, go plant a tree. And if they say you need to get to know your neighbors and you need to help each other so that you develop a trust with each other, then they mean that. Right now, they're trying to get to know us and allowing us to get to know them so that we develop a trust with each other based on experience, not just hearsay. So that when our friends, the Ponte, come to us and say, yeah, this other star nation over here, we've been working with them for a long time, you can trust them too, we feel better about that. Because right now, we're walking into a situation that we as Earth humans have not had to deal with, and that's our environmental Earth changes. And we're walking into it with our interstellar neighbor friends saying, you need some help? I'm your neighbor, hi. I, for one, would like to know if those neighbors are friendly, if we can trust them, and what kind of help they have to offer. Because none of us can do this solo.
And having said that, will you leave us with the Ponte farewell greeting?
I will.
For all the listeners.
I hold the light for you. I breathe in the light with you. We exhale our light together and share light breath with all. Wear your day with ease.
Thank you so much, Sue. Until next time, take great care.
Thank you for having me very much.
We love you.
Wonderful time. All
Take
right.
care.
Bye, everybody.